Well, my next guest is Silkie Carlo, is director of Big Brother Watch. She's been on the show an awful lot lately, talking about the vaccine passport and the huge implications for our privacy and our I suppose, implications for our relationship with the state in recent weeks. But today she's here to talk about the European Court of Human Rights. They've ruled that the UK has the UK's mass interception programmes, as disclosed by Edward Snowden all those years ago, did unlawfully breach citizens' rights to privacy and free expression. It's the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Human Rights ruling. Let's talk about this. Silkie, how significant is this ruling?
It's really significant. It's a landmark ruling, and thanks to Snowden, this huge amount of information came to light, and what was once really treated as a paranoid conspiracy theory about mass surveillance became in the realms of facts, evidence, law, and we were able to challenge it right up to the highest court in Europe, one of the most authoritative human rights jurisdictions in the world. And as a result, he's been vindicated. We've been vindicated. We know that the UK was breaching millions of people's rights through mass communications interception that even many members of parliament didn't know about, many people in government didn't know about. It was completely secretive and completely excessive. And there's nowhere further we can go with the legal challenge. We took it right up to the highest level, and have found that indeed people's rights to privacy and free expression were unlawfully breached.
And there's a very big difference, isn't there, between the public voting for MPs who then in Parliament knowingly vote for a situation where they say, right, we believe that it is okay for there to be surveillance of the British public, many millions of innocent people, in order to catch serious criminals, whether they be organised criminals, terrorists, paedophiles or whatever. But we've decided that we will give up certain freedoms of innocent people to privacy in return for, we believe, this extra safeguard. That is one thing, and lots of people can disagree with that, but that is one thing. That's not what happened. What happened was this was going on, as we discovered in America, as Edward Snowden had exposed, on a mass scale without any parliamentary knowledge or oversight. And again, then on that basis, in a free democracy, utterly unacceptable.
Yeah, and even the people who were tasked with oversight of the intelligence agencies didn't know just how much was going on or how groups were being affected. So we found out, for example, in the course of litigation, that groups like Amnesty International were being spied on by their own government. Just to give you an idea of the kinds of things that we found that Snowden revealed the intelligence agencies were doing, there was a program called Tempora. That was one of the big first ones that was covered by The Guardian. It's a bulk data store of all internet traffic. So there's a security intelligence agency buffer that collects all internet traffic. There was a program called Karma Police, where the British agencies were trying to build a web browsing profile for every visible user on the internet. There was the program Optic Nerve, where GCHQ was intercepting people's webcams in their own homes, taking photos of them to train facial recognition software.
Wow.
It's mind blowing. It's the kind of stuff that we saw in dystopian fiction.
Yeah.
That's true. And the really sad thing is the price that's being paid for revealing this mass scale human rights abuses is that Edward Snowden is now effectively in exile in Russia, and I think he really deserves the protection of democratic nations.
Yeah, he didn't do this for money. He didn't do this to help a foreign government. He exposed this because he just believed fundamentally that this was wrong and knew that it was against the law. Now let's tie this into what's happening at the moment, because when people are fearful, whether it's about terror attacks, and we saw that in America and in the UK, or whether it's about organised crime, paedophiles, or in this case COVID, virus that's killing millions of people around the world. When people are scared, people will basically agree to pretty much anything, and there is always this argument. We've had it over the years. Look, if you've done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to fear. That doesn't necessarily mean one wants to be filmed inside one's own house when one is doing nothing wrong. People still have their urge to have privacy and have a right to privacy in all of their online communications. But people would agree to things. Now, this is the issue a lot of people have over the vaccine passport issue and what is on these various apps and how they will be used and when they will be used and by whom. which is that these things end up being a very slippery slope, and measures that are brought in ostensibly in a crisis very rarely get given back. Powers that are taken by the government are very rarely given back as soon as the crisis is over. That is the lesson we've very much learned in recent years.
Yeah, and let's remember all of these mass surveillance programs were built very, very quickly in the wake of 9/11. And so it's that we are now living with the legacy of an enormous reaction to a previous emergency. The mind only boggles as to what the agencies might be doing on the back of the pandemic. I mean, we know that, the Telegraph reported just a few days ago about Spy B released a paper saying that they were doing phone surveillance of people who had been vaccinated to analyze behavioral change. That's published in a paper. God only knows what's happening under the cloak of secrecy where we can't see. And if I can say, I think that's why groups like us, like Big Brother Watch, are really important, because day in, day out, we do this scrutiny and we make sure that we are watching the watchers, and keep scratching away to bring this stuff to light.
And the issue is, I think there are two big issues. One is most of us don't understand it. I'm really, this is an area, I'm married to an IT geek, and basically we just don't allow him to talk about it at home because it's too complicated and boring, frankly. But this stuff does matter because it does affect all of our lives. And there's also, again, that attitude, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what's the big deal in someone knowing, say, your vaccine status, or someone being able to intercept your emails? If they're all about, can you bring milk home on the way home from work, what does it matter? But actually, this stuff does matter to people. And although people might give away an awful lot of their information, say it's to be on Facebook for free, they may sign up to that. Maybe often people don't realise quite how much of their freedoms and their information, their personal information they're giving away. It's the fact that actually there does come a point when most people will hit a wall of going, actually, no, I don't want that information given out to anybody. I don't want everyone to know. Most people do actually want to have a private life. And then it becomes too late.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that most people have nothing to hide should mean that the security and intelligence agencies have nothing to look at. But actually, I think we've all got something to fear from an increasingly authoritarian surveillance state, and it does have an impact. And if we want to see what that impact looks like, I mean, Julia, you and I were talking about this before, just look at China, because that's the blueprint. And then you can see what happens when people feel that they are being watched all of the time. They change their behavior, their personalities develop in a different way, and there's an awful lot of conformity. We already have, I think, increasing with kind of social media acting like its own panopticon, increasing conformity. And I am worried that people's behaviour, whether it's CCTV cameras, facial recognition, mass internet surveillance, people's behaviour is going to start to change. And like you say, one day, God forbid, it might be too late when people decide.
When people finally wake up. Well, indeed. And again, people who are sitting there thinking, of course, we're not going to become like China. Where have you been living since March the 23rd last year, people? Thank you very much, Silkie Carlo, director of Big Brother Watch. Thank you. Doing God's work, Silkie. Doing God's work. That's right. And I'm an atheist.